Oh my goodness, there are so many brushes, I don't know which one to use. If you've ever been in that predicament, stay tuned. Alrighty, so all of these brushes here can be identified as foundation brushes. First, I've separated the dual fiber brushes from the paddle brushes. Dual fiber is typically black and white. I call this foundation brush a paddle brush because it looks like a paddle or an oar. Brushes may vary in shape, so be mindful of that. The silver or black part of the brush is called the ferrule, and they are about the same density brush-wise. The bristles are typically synthetic or a synthetic blend. You can also call this a flat brush. Both have slim profiles, but we'll call the flatter one a square brush since the tip is squared off. The square brush tends to have a thicker application, more like a glaze, whereas the paddle brush applies and slightly blends. Dual fiber brushes have a mix of natural and synthetic fibers, and they're soft like a bunny. This is a typical dual fiber stippling brush. It's soft and big, and this is a smaller version of it. It's exactly the same thing. And this is a smaller, even denser version of the smaller brush. And this one is slightly paddle shaped. The shape is similar to that of a blush brush. Let's start with the large stippling brush. You can see it's fairly large in comparison to the rest of my body. And it's dense, but it's still very soft. You can see through to the black part of the brush. So you can see that there's two fibers. I'm only applying about a pound of pressure, but you can see how soft the brush is in that circular motion. Again, comparing the large one with the small one, they're exactly the same thing. One is larger, the other is smaller, same density. So very soft. The way I like to use these brushes is I like to stipple first and then buff. This is probably the quickest way applying liquid or cream foundation I find without using your hands. I would use a smaller stippling brush for more precision or more coverage. Think of it this way, the smaller brush is like a sharpened crayon, whereas a larger brush is like a blunt crayon. Again, this is the brush that looks like a blush brush. So you can see this brush is very, very soft. I would use this for dusting fallout from my face or highlighting with loose powder or very subtle bronzing. Now this brush is very, very dense. You can see the difference. It's shorter. The white part, the synthetic fiber is much shorter. So you can see that. And when I turn it this way, you can see how dense the smaller brush is. All the bristles are packed in, whereas the slightly larger brush is a little looser. So I'm going to show you how soft the smaller stippling brush is. It's very soft. And now this really dense one, it barely bends. This brush is perfect for cake foundations or cream products that need to be applied densely. An easy way to check the density of the brush is to lightly press on it and rub your finger across it. The more difficult it is to push the brushes, the more dense the brush is. Again, very dense and not really dense. Okay, now these are contouring brushes. One is black, one is white. The white one has sort of an angle to it. You can see one end is pointy and elongated, whereas that one is uniform all around and very dense. Again, brush shapes will vary from brush to brush as well as brand to brand, so be wary of that. The white angled contouring brush is much softer than the black contouring brush. Again, you can see that one end is elongated and slightly pointed. Right there. And I like to use that to contour the cheeks. And then I'll flip it and use the bottom of the brush to blend out any product. Just like that. The regular contouring brush is denser, so it will apply more product. Again, a dense brush will apply more product, a fluffy brush will blend product. This is a medium-sized powder blush brush. You can use it for powder or blush. It's quite dense, but also very soft. After applying about a pound of pressure, you can see that the bristles bend easily, so it's very soft. Going back to that dual fibered brush, the shapes you can see are very, very similar. However, the density is totally different. Dual fiber, super soft. The powder blush brush, very dense. Okay. As you use your powder blush brush, product will get into the bristles, so the brush will actually fluff out more. Make sure you wash your brush every so often, or after every use if you can. You can see that the dual fiber brush is only dense at the base and very, very thin up top. This is a short, dense paddle brush. This is a natural fiber brush. Typically they're made out of goat hair, squirrel hair, sable, various different types of animal hair. I like to use this brush to apply powder foundation as a highlight or quick eyeshadow on the lid. For the most part, synthetics are great for liquid or cream products. These are different eyeshadow blending brushes. So I have 2 natural fiber brushes and 2 synthetic mix brushes, I believe. The first is a round tapered blending brush. This is the most basic blending brush. And then I have an angled blending brush, a tapered brush, and then another tapered brush. The first blending brush is very soft and very round, whereas the other one is angled. Again, like that angled contouring brush, I like to use the edge to sculpt the eye. It's also great for picking up pigment or loose powders. So if you just rub your finger over the bristles, a little bit of your finger oil goes on the hair and you can easily apply a loose shadow over. Going back to that very basic blending brush, you can see it's very, very soft. And again, soft brushes are great for blending, whereas firmer brushes are great for applying. If you contour your eye, make sure you blend out the edge with this fluffy brush. You can also contour and highlight with this brush. Alright, so these 2 brushes look very, very similar, but you can tell they're very different once you touch them and feel their density. So, very, very soft and very, very firm. You can tell by doing circular motion that one is great for blending, that one, and the other would not really blend that well. I actually use the firmer tapered blending brush for applying details and lightly brushing out the edges and then reblending. So I'll apply detail and then blend out the edge. Okay, so these 2 brushes look similar as well. One looks slightly flatter, if you can see it. Okay, maybe that's a little better. One is flat and the other one is round all the way. So this one is firm and this one is soft. It's not as soft as the basic blending brush, however. Again, test by doing circles on your hand, so it'll blend all right. And that one, well, detail. So I like to use the flattened tapered blending brush to sculpt my eye. I also like to use it to blend out shadow underneath my lashes. Okay, now we can talk about eyeshadow brushes. These are paddle brushes. Again, one is flatter and one is fluffier. We already talked about the brush in my right hand. You can use that for eyeshadow as well. Turning the brush sideways, you can see their different profiles. One is very slim and straight all the way. The other one is a bit fluffier and more dense. When I pat the brush on my hand, you can see that the bristles are very flexible, whereas this one is denser. I find that the fluffier brush blends out my eyeshadow a bit more than the flat one. The flat one, I feel I can pack more eyeshadow on my lid. I actually like to use it to highlight my brow and again to pack the shadow on my lid. This one, it's alright when it comes to applying shadow on my lid. And then I have these brushes, even flatter and more geometrical. The outer 2 brushes are synthetic and the one in the middle is natural fiber. I think it's boar bristle, I could be wrong. Or maybe it was pony hair. I don't know, I don't remember, but it's pretty firm. Again, those 2 ankle brushes look pretty similar. They look like they just vary in color, but if you feel them, the synthetic one is very soft, whereas the natural fibered one is quite hard. The firmer angled brush is excellent for filling in your brows with eyeshadow or lightly applying a liner to your lids and blending out underneath your lashes. It's also excellent for applying concealer to the corners of your mouth if you're doing a dark lip. However, I find that the synthetic fiber brush is excellent for gel liners or liquid liners, It gives you a more natural look to the brows, and you can also use it for concealer around the mouth. I really like this flat definer brush. I use it a lot. It's excellent for applying concealer to underneath your brows if you need to cover up some brow hairs that you forgot to pluck, and also applying a highlighter to the brow bone. I also like to use it to set the waterline. Some people use it to line the eyes. I don't really do that. You can also fill in your brows if you don't have an angle brush. And I have two pointed brushes. One is a precise eyeliner brush, it's a skinnier one, and then I have a bolder one to create bolder lines. Excellent for gel liner, also for creating detailed artwork on your body, great for body painting. And then I have this concealer brush. It's a synthetic fiber brush. It's great for applying concealer over blemishes, concealer under the eye, and of course blending out the edges after. I actually like to use the same brush to apply lipstick because it is dense and the bristles are a little bit longer. It's synthetic, so it shouldn't absorb too much product. Then I have this really dense short shadow push brush. This is mainly used just to densely apply shadow in a certain area. I wouldn't really use it to blend an area out because it's kind of firm. And I also have this pencil brush. It's dome shape, very dense. Kind of see that up close. It's pointed and round. I like to use that in the inner tear duct area and to do a cut crease and slightly blend that out. And it's great for blending out liner underneath the lash line. Some people have used it for lipstick, but I think that's a worst case scenario. Well, that's it for the brushes. I hope it was helpful to some of you. The only way to really find out is to try it for yourself. Bye!